A few weeks ago, we made a video on the Russiagate scandal, citing Glenn Greenwald's article revealing that some of the people that were saying Trump was colluding with the Russians were proven to be illegitimate. You know what? We got a lot of flack for that. A lot of mainstream media outfits says Russell Brand's advocating for Trump. He's a Trump lover. I've always been clear with you about my feelings for Trump. I'm not a fan, but what I do like is truth, open discussion, honest debate, respecting people's right to hear things authentically and truthfully. Since we made that video, there's been even more revelations. Let's see how the accusations of me being a Trump supporter look in the light of these new accusations. Hello there, you 4,400,000 children of the revolution. Let's have a little look at the Russiagate story and how it's developing. I have a personal interest in this now because when I reported on it last time, admittedly under the somewhat provocative title, Trump was right, we got all sorts of heat and feedback that really surprised me because I've always thought that there was room for open discussion, honesty and clarity, but I was misquoted, misdirected, taken out of context. I must say I was astonished by the conduct of the mainstream media. Breaking Points did a video about it, Jimmy Dore did a video about it. There was some lovely support, but I was very, very surprised by it. Let's have a look at how that story has developed since then. Writing in the New York Times, which I believe is basically a right-wing fascist organisation. An analyst who was a key contributor to Democratic-funded opposition research into possible links between Donald Trump and Russia was arrested on Thursday and charged with lying to the FBI about his sources. The analyst, Igor Danchenko, was a primary researcher for claims that went into the so-called Steele dossier, a compendium of rumours and unproven assertions suggesting that Mr. Trump and his 2016 campaign were compromised by and conspiring with Russian intelligence officials to help him defeat Hillary Clinton. What offended me was the idea, the assertion that you would require collusion in order to overcome Hillary Clinton. She wasn't a popular candidate. She wasn't offering anything new. The Democratic Party is trying to avoid accepting the responsibility for being a party that doesn't reach its supposed constituency of ordinary working people by blaming Russia. The inability to accept that the reason that they're not elected is because they're not electable, because they're not offering people something they want. You know, like I've always said, you should consider the conditions that lead to Trump, Trump and post-Trump. What is that whole phenomena? Obviously, people had an appetite for something new, some sort of change. And the fact that ordinary working people were willing to vote for a billionaire who was a candidate for the Republican Party shows just how little they think of the Democratic Party. And that's what the focus should be on. Not like, oh, Donald Trump and evil, whatever you think of Donald Trump, but what can we do to make this party meaningful? In a 39-page indictment obtained by the special counsel John H. Durham, a grand jury accused Mr. Danchenko of 5 counts of making false statements to the FBI about his sources for certain claims in the dossier. I don't claim to be a political expert. We're just using reliable sources from across the political spectrum to construct meta-narratives that you might be interested in wherever you are on the political spectrum. As I've always said to you, I don't exist within this rubric. I've been disillusioned long ago and I believe in new solutions, real changes, and if you want to know more about them, I can talk to you about them on my mailing list and in more depth in other sources. Here I'm giving a kind of an overview. This is from Intelligencer. Since BuzzFeed published Steele's reports in 2017, many of the dossier's key claims have failed to materialise or have shown to be false. But this week it may have been dealt a death blow when the operative used by Steele to gather material for the dossier was indicted. Would you not look at this information with the understanding of, for example, Biden's recent U-turn on selling arms to Saudi Arabia? Just one campaign promise that's turned out to be untrue. Like, how could you go, there must be some reason. There must be some reason that people would vote for Donald Trump. Well, they're obviously crazy and idiots, and obviously the Russians must be involved. Could it be that there's no point in voting for anybody really because no one ever does anything and the stuff they say they're going to do is all lies? No, it can't be that. It must be the Russians. Well, in the Washington Post, the Danchenko indictment doubles as a critique of several media outlets that covered Steele's reports in 2016 after its publication by BuzzFeed in January 2017. As discussed in this series, CNN, MSNBC, Mother Jones and the McClatchy newspaper chain and various pundits showered credibility upon the dossier without corroboration. That's another thing. That's not good practice, is it? To shower praise on a dossier because it happens to support what you believe anyway. We're just like a little team doing this and like we check stuff out. and found other topics to cover when a forceful debunking arrived in December 2019 via a report from Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz. The indictment provides further insight into why the FBI had concluded that the dossier was mostly a jumble of claims that were inaccurate, unconfirmed, or already publicly reported. Sourcing for the dossier was threadbare in the most charitable of depictions. The Wall Street Journal on Friday published a story noting that the indictment contradicted the newspaper's original reporting. We will continue to follow the Danchenko case closely and report updates as they develop, a Journal spokesperson said in a statement. We asked the Journal if it intended to add an editor's note, correction, retraction to the January 2017 story. A spokesperson declined to elaborate. I think the reason people are disillusioned with mainstream media and increasingly coming to media sources such as this one and many other comparable or vastly different independent media sources is because we've come to accept that mainstream media has so many collaborative relationships with big business, high finance, government agency, existing narratives that the idea of objectivity, other than notable, rare and very noble exceptions, is anathema. You're not going to get objectivity from there, like as this example demonstrates. They didn't corroborate or check the dossier in the first place. Now the dossier has been proven to be wishful thinking rather than fruitful fact. ABC News issued this statement: "We are reviewing this in light of new developments." That's it. Oh, you're clamming up now. News organisations may face a mismatch as they place their reporting alongside the indictment. Where the indictment relies on emails, interviews and other powerful investigative tools, the Wall Street Journal's initial 2017 scoop cited a single anonymous source. News outlets now face a steep journalistic challenge, that of returning to their sources in an effort to back up the original claims. If that effort doesn't produce enough evidence to surmount the allegations in the indictment, there's only one option: retract the stories. Allowing one version of events to sit awkwardly alongside another and leaving it to the reader to decide won't cut it. Except increasingly, I mean, you tell me, you know more than I do. Do you trust mainstream media? Does any of this surprise you? I know in the comments loads of you say, "Get with it, Russell. We knew this stuff 20 years ago, 30 years ago." Well, yeah, I'm sure you did. How do you feel then about this ongoing investigation? What do you think it points to? Do you think there are any political candidates or political parties existing within the current paradigm that could meaningfully change this situation, that have the will to, for example, end lobbying, end trading among members of Congress, have new assemblies made up of ordinary people, decentralise power where possible? All sorts of things that are worthy of discussion and examination, surely. Again, from The Intelligencer, it's hard to imagine a turn of events with more dire consequences than the new indictment for Steele. The dossier and Fusion GPS, the investigative firm run by two ex-Wall Street Journal reporters that hired the ex-spy on behalf of Hillary Clinton's campaign and promoted his reports to the media. The charges against Danchenko may also force a reckoning that some journalists who embraced the dossier had hoped to avoid: an examination of their reporting about it and their ties to operatives for hire. Doesn't it as well point to the fact that the Hillary campaign had to be engaged with dirty tricks and smears? Doesn't it show you that even a figure like me, a pretty small fish in a big pond, suffers from condemnation and smears and attacks just attempting to report an unbiased opinion? It also points to the fact that Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party seemingly pursue power just for the sake of it, just in order to augment and fortify existing financial relationships, just to carry on with their own interests, not really to change the lives of ordinary people. I think this points to a much bigger problem, a kind of stifled and entrenched corruption that's hard to even fathom. Relationships between media, big business and political parties that prevents any real change ever happening. That there is no reason for hope or optimism from any of these figures. That they're never going to offer you any change, because change is not what they're contemplating. What they're contemplating is further fortifying and, sort of locking in their existing power bases. Don't it seem ridiculous to you that that campaign was primarily focused on smearing their opponent instead of just saying, well, look, we're going to try and create a better America? The reason they can't say that is because they don't mean to do that. They don't plan to do that. And even in the case of some of the campaign pledges made by Biden, already they're falling apart and proving not to be true. So they have to resort to narrative explosions and slurs and vivid ideas. The Russians, there's proof, it's all happening. Because you can't say, look, don't worry about that crazy, forget that lot. We are going to make America better for you. If you're an American person, you live in an ordinary life, you earn less than $50,000 a year, we're going to make your life better in this series of ways. Isn't that what a political party should be? And instead of actually doing that, they'd rather just point the finger and blame people. Oh, you like Trump, you're racist, all of this kind of stuff just comes out, instead of actually getting on with the business of creating a better and fairer system. Reuters and CNN wrote, in September, a lawyer for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign was indicted on charges of lying to the FBI in a 2016 meeting where he shared information about the Trump Organization and Russia. In August 2020, FBI agent Kevin Klein Smith was convicted on a felony false statement charge arising from the internal review of the Special Counsel's Russia investigation. So at this point, 3 people have been arrested in relation to those allegations. And again, I don't claim to be an expert, but I feel like the relationship between Donald Trump and the FBI when he was president was not a great relationship. So I don't know why they would now be like, come on, we've got to prove that these charges were untrue. And again, just to touch on why this affected me personally, because I didn't really talk about it at the time, because I didn't really know what to do, whether it was the best thing to ignore it. Check out some of the stuff that was written. This was from The Wrap. Russell Brand fans say he's officially lost his mind after latest right-wing conspiracy videos. It's described as a right-wing conspiracy to point out that people have been arrested for collusion in what seems like a false charge that there was collusion between the Donald Trump campaign and Russia. That's not a right-wing conspiracy. I'm not a right-wing person. If you want to increase the tide of who is an enemy, then who's going to be left? Who's going to be left if people are going, oh, well, that weren't true then? It's extraordinary to me. People should want open communication, unbiased reporting where possible, an acknowledgement that all of us have sort of got our own limitations and prejudices that we're unsure of and uncertain of, but there's a kind of good faith attitude of let's try and do this together rather than let's make enemies of one another. And the reason they can't do that is because they are bound by so many financial ties, so many ideological ties, that there is no objectivity. There can be no objectivity. And I would also suggest that they're very concerned about their diminishing market and diminishing credibility, but they are contributing to that with their own practices. Russell Brand, an actor typically known for his more liberal political opinions, is starting to lean heavily into right-wing conspiracies on his YouTube channel, leaving fans flummoxed and upset. It's not a right-wing conspiracy theory to say that. I'm not a right-wing person. For me, the right and the left are the same thing. I don't see myself as involved in that. I'm interested in freedom, the empowerment of ordinary people, the empowerment of all communities, people to be able to live their lives and be whoever they are. I don't see any political party advocate for that. I know some of you say the Republicans do and that Donald Trump did, but I would argue that they have the same kind of relationships with big business that the Democrats do. I'm no more aligned to the Republicans than the Democrats. For me, I'm interested in different ideas, some of them with a historical underpinning, some of them with an anthropological underpinning, but mostly I'm interested in real, meaningful change for you. I would welcome Russell Brand to the QAnon cult, but let's be honest, he's been embodying their extremist mentality for years, says Amy Vanderpool, creator of the Shiro newsletter. Well, actually, I do believe that there is a lot of collusion between big business and the government, as demonstrate here. I do believe there are a lot of fake media narratives that are spun. I do believe that the lobbying profession has got out of control. I do believe that ordinary people do not have a big enough voice, enough control over their own lives and political process. If that's the right-wing conspiracy, then I'm a right-wing conspiracy theorist. I don't think those kind of labels and those kind of smears are very helpful if what you are truly interested in is investigating and presenting and sharing the truth with people and having an open conversation. I wouldn't describe my views as right-wing or left-wing. I'm interested in changing the world so ordinary people have access to the power that affects and controls their life. I'm interested in investigating new theories, new ideas, new systems. And if you want to come on that journey with me, you are very welcome to, because you are all welcome beyond any possible label that you could ever give yourself or anyone else could give you. But that's just what I think. What do you think? Let me know your views in the comments. Are you worried about the mainstream media? If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. Cheeky though it may be, and the cause of all this chaos in the first place. And if you want to learn a little bit more about well-being and spirituality, check this out. You'll learn something valuable from it. And please sign up to my mailing list as well, so I can communicate with you directly, tell you what I'm reading, thinking, and what I'm into. Then we can communicate with each other directly. Stay free.